Hi everyone, it's Natalie here, and welcome to Sanskrit Blue Tarot. A little special hello to Whale Song 81. Hi! So I'm back doing, finishing January, sliding through with my 31 days of tarot. I took a little break last week. Today's prompt is if you could meet any tarot creator author, who and when would you want to meet them? So for me personally, the tarot creators, since living tarot creators are so abundant, they're like everywhere. Obviously that's exciting. But the people who I'm most curious about, because I can't find interviews with them, and I can't find, it's not as easy to know about them. The person I really want to know about is Aleister Crowley. Yeah. So the author of the Book of Thoth, or as we've come to know it, the Thoth Tarot. I absolutely have come to deeply appreciate, deeply appreciate the tarot. Specifically the Thoth Tarot. And, when I got the deck last year, I was, I thought, why is it that I never got this deck? Well, I never got it because back in the 90s when I was learning tarot, anybody that I trusted would always say like, oh, that's a really dark deck. You don't want to work with that deck. And I would think, wow, really? And I remember one time going to see a tarot reader, not realizing that this was the deck that she was working with, because I had seen one image. I think it's the image that we all know and love. It's the two of discs that's on the box. But I really didn't know anything else about the deck. And so the first thing I saw was this, and I thought it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. I immediately was like, oh, I love that deck. And as the reader pulled out the cards and was laying them out, they were so beautiful and so exquisite. And I thought, why is it that look at that. That's so beautiful. Why would I have not won, what? I don't know. So with that, I thought, okay, so why do we all think that Crowley was such a bad guy? And I immediately began researching that this time around. So, and I bought it. I bought it hook, line, and sinker that he was a bad guy. Don't touch the deck. It's demonic, all of this. And, I guess it may be, but frankly, that's not what I'm getting. That's really not what I'm getting from it at all. It's just stunning. The way that it's been created and worked. That right there. I don't know. Anyway, or this universe card. Yeah. So, I went on a deep dive. I went on an internet wormhole of sorts and began exploring who is Aleister Crowley. Who is this person? What was he like? With the intent of discerning truth from bullshit, from the kind of fear that tends to come up when we don't understand somebody, right? When we don't like somebody or we don't understand them, or they're doing something that touches too many of our sore points or society's sore points at a particular moment. The way we usually treat that is through fear, and then through condemnation. And we do it in various ways that are often very harmful. I think, I could say a lot about that. But for the sake of brevity and staying on point, I'm just going to try my best. to get through this and stay with where we're supposed to be. But, I investigated so many videos. I read a lot of articles, blog posts, and really came to the conclusion he was just a guy. He was a dude. He was on a really profound spiritual quest. And that spiritual quest led him in some very interesting directions and led him into making some very poor choices, I think, at moments. I think in some cases he may have upset the wrong people and gotten, cast in a light that was not accurate, but which was probably the result of pissing off the wrong people and offending the wrong people. I think it also tends to be the case when I look at different spiritual leaders, right? Because he did aspire to that, clearly aspired to that. There is a tendency in spiritual leaders who are on that path, not only to be deeply narcissistic, but to get to a point in their own studies and in their own work where they stop really seeing or how do I put this? Like they stop understanding their own role in another person's experience. That's what I want to say. And I think he got to that stage at a certain point, probably while he was doing a lot of his work in Sicily or I think it was Sicily, somewhere down in the Mediterranean. And really, it didn't go well for him. He probably got some criticism that was rightfully deserved. I know from my own experience of working with and then figuring out desperately, how do I forgive the spiritual teachers that I've worked with who wounded me so horribly, so badly, through what felt like complete carelessness and cruelty. And what it came down to, in part, is maturity, and recognizing my own, recognizing myself in retrospect and where I was, but also just starting to put, I don't know, I'm starting to wander all over the place, but starting to put the bigger picture together. You're looking at a human being. You're not looking at someone who's superhuman. You're just looking at a person. And when you reduce it to that and you contemplate, okay, what kind of a role does trauma play in a person's life and in shaping them? What role does a fear of missing out have in the choices that we make, right? So a lot of people criticize Crowley for, I think probably rightfully in some respect actually, but for, leaving that house up in, I guess it was on Loch Ness, where he was doing this ritual, and probably brought a lot of really dangerous stuff into our world and then did not complete the ritual. Very, very, very bad idea. Well, the reason he left and the reason he quit the ritual was because he was offered a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in the Golden Dawn. They sort of went to him as like a savior. Please come to me. Please help us. Please help us. We need your help. I know that there, at a certain point in my life, had I been asked to do something like that my ego would have been so wounded, and it would have been so in need of validation and reparation through recognition, that's something I could have easily done myself. I can see in myself that no matter how devoted I might be to a particular path or might have been to a particular path, that I could so easily have made that mistake that I like to believe now I would not be as likely to make. I hope. But that's the thing about the ego. It can really it can talk us into making some really bad decisions, really bad. And, not being fully embodied and fully in the heart space. When you're on the spiritual path and you've hit a certain point with it, can really also be very damaging. We can say and do some incredibly damaging things to others without ever intending it, without ever intending it, and then be shocked, especially the young, right? Especially the young and the less experienced, and then be in total shock later on when we realize that something that we've said, done, etc., which we thought they were consenting to, was not really okay, right? So I would like to meet Aleister Crowley because I would like to know who was the guy. I'd like to see him in context. I'd like to read his body language. I'd like to listen to his tone of voice. I've got his book. I can kind of hear him almost as I read the book, but I'd really like to know, who is this guy? Who is the human being? And I'd like to know him. I feel like as a younger person, I don't have, I don't have as many questions about what he would have been like, but I would really like to have known him or to meet or have met him, as he was at the point in his life where he was collaborating with Lady Frida. Because I think he went through some discoveries at that point in his life. He'd kind of fallen apart a little bit. Right at the end of his life, he was really falling apart. His health fell apart. Everything fell apart. I'd like to know who was that. I'm an end-of-life doula anyway, so I find it fascinating to know people at the end of their lives, and I find it easier to kind of backtrack and trace who they were through their lives. But when you meet somebody towards the end of their life, they have the seeds of everything that they were as a younger person. And I feel like I'd be able to put the bigger picture of who he was together and really be able to make him fully human in a way that is hard to do when there's so many different legends about a person and ideas about a person. Yeah. And I don't know if there's something redeeming that's there, things that were taken out of context. Those are things I'd want to know. And you can sniff out bullshit. You can sniff out a lie. So I'd probably have to be there for a long time, earning his trust. Right? And getting a sense, getting him to really let me in enough that I could begin to discern those things and tease them apart. So yeah, that's who I would like to know. That's who I'd like to meet. All right, everybody. A bit longer than I anticipated, but there we go. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.